Good morning, champions. Coach Tina here, and we are on day 2 of our February Masterclass, and I'm so happy to have you be a part of it. This is for the love of money. And yesterday we covered what I call buckets and buckets. We talked about abundance. We talked about how money and the love of it can kind of get in our way sometimes. But once we organize it, once we contain the desire that we have for money, then we can start to have a life that really supports us and brings us to where we want to be. So the point of this discussion is to find out why financial freedom, which is something that my champions ask about all the time, needs to be your number one priority. And that is just a concept that we are getting in our minds that financial freedom is actually closer than you think, but how do we actually achieve it? And I want to say good morning to Margaret. Thank you for being here today. Always happy to see you in the feed. And if you are watching live or on the replay, please make sure to let us know by putting #live or #replay. It gives me good, strong feelings to know that you are you're being part of the community and contributing and putting in your comments and letting us know that this information has been good for you. Always a blessing. All right. So what we want to do first is get us into a different mode on the screen so that we can see it a little bit better. And we're going to go ahead and get started. And we're going to review, first of all, yesterday we talked about buckets and buckets, and today we're talking about the money police. Tomorrow we'll be talking about our relationships with money, because we all know that that is a important part of our existence and what we need to do to be moving forward. And I appreciate you all for being on this morning and putting in your #lives. Thank you. All right, let's keep going. And the first question I want to ask is, who is it in your life, or maybe from your past, that won't let you have financial freedom? Like if you had to blame it on somebody, who would you be blaming at this point? I think this is a really important concept because we all have that somebody that maybe made us feel like we weren't enough, or we were held back by their words. And I love that Margaret has said me. And that is so insightful, Margaret. I love it. I love it. I love it, because we're the only person in the equation, right? That really matters. Sure. I'll give a great example. My father, who I love dearly, told me at one point in my career that I wasn't a salesperson. And that has played with my mind for years and years, because in a way it was a limit, right? Like if you can't do sales and you're in business, then what opportunity is there for you? And my dad is a super salesman. He's a business owner. He's years and years and years. I've watched him grow his businesses. And I didn't get to be a part of that because I wasn't a salesperson. And one of the things I loved when I met Dean Graciosi is sales is service, right? And I know that I am someone who loves to help others, and that is service. And so my kind of selling is not my dad's kind of selling, which is perfectly okay. But for years and years and years, I let that concept hold me back and make me believe that I wasn't allowed to have the kind of success that he has had. So it's very interesting, isn't it? Just the things that can happen in your own mind. So go ahead and drop it in the comments. Who is it that won't let you have financial freedom? If that's something that you can identify at this point, and I see Sarah's here too. So happy to have you, Sarah. It's a really good Awareness is everything. Once we have awareness about an issue, we can start to do something about it. It's those of us that have blinders on, that don't see the next step, that tend to not have the growth and the development that we're looking for. And then we wonder what happened. Like, why does everybody else get what we want? But it's because we're not really looking with, how they have rose colored glasses. So we're not looking through clear glass to see what's actually going on, or in the looking glass for that matter. So very good for you, Margaret, knowing that you are the number one person involved in the financial freedom. And for some of it's voices that we hear, right? Like, and I don't mean it like mental health type of voices, but voices in that somebody has said something to us and it just keeps reoccurring in our minds. And that becomes something that holds us back, even though the words aren't actually being said, or maybe they were meant to protect us at a young age. And then as we got older, we just adopted it, but it's totally based on the child version of us and not what we're capable of right now. So, and Margaret sharing a little bit more, she wanted to be a social worker when she was younger because she wanted to help people. Yeah. But she didn't want to go to school for a million years to be a psychologist. But she was told she wouldn't make any money doing it, and it kept her from things. Yeah. It's so hard sometimes to look back and see our past and see the things that we did that contributed to maybe where we are today. And you just have to kind of adopt it as part of your story. I know for me, when I was young, right out of college, I had the privilege of being flown out to the Microsoft campus and being interviewed to work at Microsoft. And I was so excited about this opportunity. I had approached them when they were visiting our college, and I told them all about that. I just felt that their company was a fit for me. And so they offered to fly me out there. I did an entire day interview, which was amazing. I had never done anything like that. They picked me up in the morning. We had a breakfast interview. And then throughout the day, I met with all these people. It was really an incredible experience. Now, it was I was a December graduate, not a spring graduate like the rest of my peers. And I was told that I was very strong in the interview process, but they weren't, they could only do so many hires that year. And they were wanting to put my application on hold until they saw the applicants that they had in the spring. Now, I like certainty. I like my ducks in a row, especially when I was young. I wanted control over things. And so I wanted a job when I got out of college. And what was happening was I was a military ROTC cadet, and I had to go fulfill my military requirement, and it was not going to finish until the summer. When I got out in the summer, I wanted to make sure I had a job. And so I politely told Microsoft that thank you very much for considering me, but I was going to take another position. And I have thought about that for years and years, because guess what I would have been doing had I taken that position? And that was I would have been in charge of a little product they had going on at the time, which was called Word, which I think is a hoot now, because we all know what happened. I could have been the project manager for Word, right? And no, I didn't get the job, right? They asked me to wait, but I'm pretty sure had I told them that I wanted to work there no matter what, and it didn't matter, I would wait because they were the most important company, that I would have ended up working for them in some way, shape, or form, right? Like, I just know now with my adult brain that it was a lot about my passion and a lot about what I wanted. But by telling them, no, I had better options, of course, I cut that bridge, right? So really just, there's always been that regret in a way in my background, but then it opened me up for so much more. Now, I didn't have the same life, like it could have been a totally different thing, but that's okay. That's okay. The fun fact I will tell you is there's a book that the Melinda Gates wrote So the wife of Bill Gates, and she ended up getting that position and marrying him. They so when I read her book, I had to laugh because I was like, "Oh my gosh." It added a different layer to what could have happened in my life, right? So, just a little aside, let's keep going with our um mm, and I'm looking at your comments here. So, I know this is from Sarah, and this is such a beautiful insight that you have, Sarah, is that she doesn't know how to get out of where she is. And she can no longer do the design that she was doing because of health issues. She had the brain aneurysms. She went back to school to be a civil engineer and architect, and the what she was able to accomplish after the aneurysm was not the same. And so she is in a different place. And I think part of it is you just have to accept that this is the life that you're in now. And it's hard for us. It's really, really hard for us. So, um, all right. So I am going to take that off the screen and we're going to keep going because I could tell you guys stories all day and it won't get us where we want to go, right? So thank you for sharing about what financial freedom means to you. And today's concept is the money police. And the money police is not really a thing. In fact, I Googled money police and there is no responses came back. There was a lot of stuff about the police and what they do with money from like drug deals and so on, but there is not this concept. And yet we impose, I'll oftentimes self-impose a money police over our life. A lot of times we accuse people or certain rule sets that we have that keep us from what we want. And so while there are some rules, it doesn't mean that that's the only way that life can be done. But if, let's say, your parents had a definition of success and you're not following that definition of success, and so you feel like a failure, but everybody else around you and loves the way you are and loves the work you do, but you can't see that you're not a failure because you have a rule set that says, because I didn't become a doctor or a lawyer or a psychologist or an architect, I am not enough. I'm not what I need to be. And so you hold yourself back. That limit, the rules just come down on you. And a lot of times it's not, we ascribe the money police role to like the government. The government is making me, is holding me back. That the taxes are too high. There's like this law and order type thing where there's this authority that has their thumb down on us. And we just have to be really cautious that when we ascribe to those belief systems, we are the ones holding us back. And I put judges down there. Sure, you might be against a judge and he might be deciding your fate on what you get and what you don't get, or what your sentence is, what penalty you're going to be ascribed. But that still doesn't define you. Look at all the people that have overcome all of those adversities, people that have done things that we didn't know was possible, and they've completely changed their lives. They did not let the money police get them down. I think of the work I had to do when I went through my divorce because I didn't feel that I deserved half of the money that my husband and I had put together. And I literally had to spend time with a counselor week after week. I delayed the actual divorce proceedings because I wasn't strong enough to ask for half of the money. I felt guilty. I felt like I didn't deserve it. I felt like it wasn't, I wasn't allowed to have what was really mine. And so it was just this constant reworking of my mind to think of what was half and how I was allowed to have that extra bit. So very, very fascinating what we do to ourselves and how we hold ourselves back. So what I want you to do is to be aware of the money police. Be aware that if you're hearing voices or you're thinking things that are limiting you, that you call it out and you say, that is not the truth. And you give yourself like reasons why. Give yourself 3 or 4 reasons why that belief is not true. And allow it to bust itself out. Once you call it out, it's going to go like hide under a rock and not be there for you so much. And sure, you might have to do it multiple times, but it will help you because you don't know what's possible. You might be in a situation where you're like, oh, but it looks like this. But does it? Does it really? Has there never been anybody in your situation that ever turned things around and found a different way of life? Or is it possible that maybe the thing you're ascribing to, and Sarah, it's a perfect case in point for what you do. You may be sad that you don't have that level of job anymore, but you have your life. You have your relationship with your family now. You have things that you might not have had you been able to continue down a path of that amazing job. So life is happening for you, not to you. And that's where gratitude comes in, when we get really centered and aware of the fact that the life that we have is very, very helpful to us. And it fits our purpose, right? Where we are is where we're meant to be a lot of times. And if it's not, if you truly feel in your heart that there's something more, then what can you do to move out of that? Because that's really important as well. All right. Yes. Okay. And Margaret said, amen. Yes, I am preaching. I'm sorry. So I looked up some personality types of money. I was very curious as to what personality type you might think that you are. So if you identify with one of these money personality types, go ahead and stick them. Because a lot of us might say, well, it's not the money police. It's just who I am. It's the personality that I have, right? So some of us are compulsive savers, like we hoard money in a sense. Or maybe you're a compulsive spender where you don't even have a reason to buy, but you just like want that thing and you make unnecessary purchases, or it's very emotional. Again, Dean Graziosi, when he talks about buyers, there are emotional buyers, there are logical buyers, and you have to address all of them, all the spectrum, in order to address the needs of people. So what about compulsive? A compulsive moneymaker. This one is interesting, right? So you just are like obsessed with, I have to have more, and they're never satisfied. Okay. They're just always looking for the more. I see that with food, right? Always wanting to eat just a little bit or have that dessert. I need this. And it's not a truth. I'm just allowing myself to expand in a different way, right? Comfort food. Then there's those people that are indifferent to money. And this one is interesting because they tend to be financially well off anyway, and they just don't even care. It just doesn't mean anything to them. I remember I had a friend that was working at the company I was working at, but she was at a much higher level. She was a salesperson. And we would go to the ATM, and this is back in the day when I would be like barely able to take $20 out of my account. And her standard withdrawal was $200. And it just used to be like, what? Like so beyond what I was able to do. But she taught me that money is just an interesting concept, right? Like if I had a problem, she would say, is this a money problem? And I'd say, what do you mean? And she said, well, like if we could pay it off with money, then it's not really a problem. It's just a limit that you're putting on yourself. Ooh, I loved that. And it really helped me to address a different side of me and recognize that a lot of times it wasn't about the actual amount of money. It was like I was using it as an excuse to hold myself back. So then we have the saver splurger who likes to just hoard and then spend it all on something they don't need. And so then you're never certain about what it is that you are going to be doing next. And then we have the gambler. So has a lot of different sets of traits, takes big risks, but gets really depressed or sad over how they spend their money, right? So something you need to be aware of. And then there's the worrier. I was the worrier for many, many years. Okay. I constantly worried about the money and what was going to happen with it and how we weren't going to have enough. And I've told you guys this before, but there was a point at which my kids asked why I was poor and my husband was rich, and we were still married. Okay. And they just did not understand how I treated money and how my ex treated money. And one of the reasons why we're not together anymore, right? But it was a big awareness on my part to look at that and to realize that I was the main money police in my life. And the personality types are really interesting because a lot of us think that this is just who we are from the viewpoint of this is how I grew up or it was influences. Well, I'll tell you something interesting. I have twin brothers, so one was always a saver and one was always a spender all the way through. And now one of them unfortunately passed away almost 2 years ago now, but that same thing was their whole life. Like the one that's a saver is still a saver. The one that was a spender unfortunately died and left his wife with a lot of debt and big purchases that she couldn't fix because of the situation they had gotten into with debt. So like, for instance, he had a car that they had bought another car and rolled the loan into it. So the car is not worth what their loan is, and she can't even sell it and write off what needed to happen. So it's been a very eye-opening experience watching the aftermath of the different types of money personalities that have been in my life. But let's keep moving. And I'm really curious, this is your homework for today. What money rules are you aware of that you currently live by? Oops, I need to switch what money rules do you currently live by that you're aware of, right? Because you may not realize these. And so as you look at those rules, you're going to start to recognize some of the limits that are going on in your life. You know, maybe there's a rule that says there's never going to be enough money. In fact, I've got a list of them here. So let's look at them and know that you've got your thing to do. So the first one, and these are in no particular order. It's not like a level or anything. I just numbered them. One is I'll never be able to make what other people are making or have what they have. So it's almost like a song that runs in your head. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I need more. I need more. And those become a rule, right? It becomes a thing. I see the question here. What is a money rule? It's a rule set running in your mind that you live your life by, even though a lot of times it's unconscious. So if you don't believe you have enough, that's a money rule. And so you don't have enough. You like live your life so you don't have enough. This is why the people that win the lottery tend to not keep that money. There's all kinds of statistics that they'll run the money out in a year or two because they don't believe they have enough. And so it doesn't feel right to have money. So they have to get rid of it so that they can go back to their belief system, which says they don't have enough. Another money rule that happens is money is bad, or bad people that have money are bad, or it's evil. The money is the root of all evil, right? Money causes problems. It's more problems than it's worth, right? So if you have that belief system, then you're going to do things, even subconsciously, that keep you from having money. Because if money is bad and you don't want to be bad, you're a good person, then you won't attach yourself to money because that would mean that you are bad. And it's like a trick that your mind plays on you to keep you away from it. It says, well, I don't want to give you money because I know how you really feel about it. So you have to check in with yourself and understand that these rules are there, understand why you have those rules, and change the trajectory. Decide that that's not a rule you want. That's why setting those truth bombs, basically, to look at it and say, is this really true? And the number one question you can ask is this true all the time for everybody? And when you ask that question, if that's not true, then why are you adopting it as one of your rules? So another rule is I deserve to have this, so I'm going to get it because I'll figure out how to pay for it later. That's a hard one, right? It Whether it's that exactly or some way of looking at it, but you buy things without understanding the outcome. Like I used to tell my students that were in recovery from drug and alcohol addiction, I used to say, play the tape all the way through. Like they might want to go hang out with a friend that they used to use with, but they were going to be fine. It wasn't going to be a problem because they were strong. They'd been to recovery now. But we would say, play the tape all the way through. What happens next? Just hanging out with them is probably okay for a minute, maybe at your home. But if you start going out and doing things with them, what are they likely to do? They're likely to draw you back into the thing that you didn't want to do in the first place. So you just have to recognize that those things are there, and you have to be self-disciplined. You have to decide what's more important. Is it this or that, right? Like, do you want to have the life you really, really want and know you deserve? Or do you want to have the life you have? What's the difference between the two, right? You have to do different things. The next one, I'm already so far in debt, I'm never going to be able to work my way out of it. So I'm just going to live in this debt. I wanted to say debt forsaken, but just life. And that is a really tough money rule to get out of. It's like you're in a pit and you have to climb your way out. And sometimes we just don't have the energy left in us to do it. And that is why it's so important that you work on your mind, you guys. We talked about money being a spiritual game. It is a mind trap to get caught up in these rules and the things that drag you down around money. Instead, we want to focus on the area we talked about yesterday, which is the buckets. We talked about the need bucket, and a lot of this negative downward thinking is all about needs based. And so you really want to push yourself to get into the security bucket. Yes, yes. So I'm so sorry to hear this, and I'm not sure who's talking about their grandson here about committing suicide in 2015. And I'm so sorry to hear that. We've had a suicide happen in our family, and it's devastating. It's so hard to believe that life. Okay, it is Sarah. So Sarah, I'm so sorry to hear that. It's so hard to have to live through those types of situations when you know that you could have, if you had known what they were dealing with, that you think you could have said something or done something or inspired them a certain way, and we just don't have that kind of control. It's unfortunate for sure. So I'm really sorry about that. So the security bucket is the next level, and in the security bucket, you have an improved quality of life, education and skills, and things are available. You have opportunities you didn't have before. And when you're in the security area, right? Like we had the colander from yesterday where the water was dripping through it. You slowly start to put money into the security bucket, and it starts to fill up. Even if it's just a trickle, we all know, like a drop from a sink. If you put a cup under it, it will eventually fill the cup up, even though it's just a little drop at a time. Sure, if the faucet's on full blast, it's going to happen quicker, but you have to trust in the fact that the little becomes the big at a certain point. The little trickle allows you savings. And then when you have that extra little bit, you can do things like purchase insurance and have health insurance, life insurance, car insurance. Those things are all put in place because you have that little cushion. And when you have that cushion, you can do extra things with it. I need to take that thing off. And So I love this. You put $20 in savings this month. That is so awesome to hear. And that's one of the things we're going to talk about next for sure. There are actually 7 simple money rules that you need to live by. And the first one is just to make sure your money is protected. Like you don't take your pile of money. Let's say you had a bunch of ones and sit them out on the front porch and expect them to be okay, right? The wind's going to come, people will steal your money. So you have to protect it. And I don't know if that means you're tucking it under your mattress or what you're doing, who can believe in the banks these days, but make sure your money is protected. And that's when that insurance comes in play, right? When you have insurance, when you can restore things to balance, that is a valuable thing. And you don't risk your money. You don't gamble it. You don't move beyond what you have because that's risky. It doesn't protect it when you leverage it too far. And you need to budget. You need to budget your money because what gets measured gets managed. And what a lot of times people will do when they're having money problems is they're just saying, I can't deal with it. I can't allow myself to even see the depth of the problem. So I'm not going to address it at all. And so the money comes in and the money goes out, and it's just like you're in a whirlwind and you don't know what's happening with your money. But once you start to say, this is what I have, and this is what I spend money on, and here's the gap, then once that happens, you are going to recognize that there is a way out, and you'll start to make different choices and decisions. And I know I'm running a little bit out of overtime today, so I apologize, but there's good stuff, and we just have a couple more slides. You need to have an emergency fund. Can't stress the importance of that. And this statistics are saying that most people in the United States have less than $1,000 in savings, and most of our big problems cost more than $1,000. So a car issue, a health issue, maybe you need a new refrigerator or an air conditioner or something like that, and it begins to just weigh on you because then you go into debt, and then another emergency happens and you go into debt. So you have to make a priority to set money aside into that emergency fund, or have a really strong plan for your emergency that allows you to overcome whatever adversity comes your way. Along those lines, you need to eliminate debt, right? Because debt is what's evil. Bad debt, that is, debt where it's like you're putting your groceries on your credit card because you're not getting anything out of that other than, like, you might decide when you're trying to buy something, buy the off brand for $1 versus the more expensive brand for $2. And then you put it on your credit card and you end up paying more for it because over time it's just adding to it and adding to it and adding to it. And that doesn't allow you to ever get ahead. The fifth one is put money in savings, like we talked about. Savings is paying your future self. It's setting yourself up for success in the long run, and then growing your money. So taking your money and not just burying it, right? We know the whole Bible story about the talents, but investing it so that it grows. And that means you have to be wise about investments. You have to understand how money works and what are areas that you can put your money to have it grow, what's safe, what's not safe. And once you see that growth, that compounded year after year after year, that will be huge. Like for those of you that still have young children, there's a whole thing about when they turn 18, if you only put a small amount of money away for them and only hold it for like it's like $100 a month or a total of like $3,000-$4,000 in the first 5 years of their life. And then they go ahead and don't even save anymore. At retirement, they'll still have they'll still have millions of dollars compounded. But if you don't start saving until you're in like your 30s and you save that same $100 for the rest of the time until retirement, you still will not have as much as that 18-year-old putting that money in initially. So I always think, make your retirement plan be your 18-year-old. Put all that money in there and tell them that this money is what you're going to live on when as they get older. That's your retirement fund. So think about that. And then the last thing is, keep your buckets separate. Okay, we have our needs bucket. We've gone over our security bucket. Tomorrow we're going to go over the other 3 buckets. But don't rob Peter to pay Paul. Like, you can't take your safety, your emergency fund, your savings, and pay off your needs. You've got to get to that place where you have enough for your needs and you have enough for your security, or else you're stuck in the bucket where everything's flowing through it, right? I know these are common sense, and I know you guys know this stuff, but I want to put it out because maybe you'll hear it differently this time and something will click and you'll be like, okay, I get it. This is what I need to do next. So we are talking about Fingo at this point. And what's really important is that we're uncovering the 3rd row of our Fingo board. And I didn't get the Fingo board day 2 up on Facebook yet. It will be there after we're done. I'll take a moment and post it up there. So it will be there with the 3 lines. So if you're working on the Fingo board from yesterday, you have been able to mark out day 1 masterclass and day 2 masterclass. Tomorrow you'll get day 3, and then you'll have your progress check-in and the end of the month reporting how you're doing on your money endeavors, your money goals this month. Those of you going to the next level and signing up for VIP, you just have to put #VIP. Many of you did that yesterday, so you've got that marked down for you. You're eligible to come to the question and answer session that's tonight. I'm going to have that on the screen in just a minute, the timings for you. And that makes you eligible to come to the weekend workshop, which will be this Saturday, and would love to have you. This is where I'll get to work with you guys individually and allow you to ask questions about your specific money situation, as well as for us to be able to work on some of the mindset things that might be going on with you. You'll have access to office hours this month and ability to do a one-on-one with me if you're in that VIP section. So happy to have you. Tracking. So the level we've unleashed today is the things you really need to do to understand what could work for you. So we need to track our income. We need to track our expenses. I gave you the center of the board is usually a free. So using your board, printing it out, having it available. So by tomorrow, we'll have the whole thing and you'll be able to work through that. And then you can create a budget and know your gap. Okay. So all of that can be done with a document that I'm also putting into the Facebook group under the files tab. So this will be available for you. It is a spreadsheet. You can print it out as a PDF and just write on it. Or if you use it as a spreadsheet, so I'll put it up there in 2 ways. The Google Doc will have a way that you can come in, and everywhere that you enter and it's in a box with a 0, those will automatically calculate for you. But basically you'll track any of your income and it'll total it. You'll track any of your expenses. And this actually goes down quite a ways in the spreadsheet. So it's got a lot more categories than this, and it totals up your expenses for you. And then it will automatically put your income and your expenses in, and it will tell you what your gap is. If the gap is negative, if it's a red gap, it just means that you've got some work to do. If it's a green gap, that's fine. It means you still have some work to do, because now you have to decide what to do with your extra money that you have each month. And what we recommend in the ULA Green Gap is that you put 45% of the gap, so the positive gap, into paying off debt. You put 45% into investing in your future. So this is your gap. If you just have $100, that means you're putting 45 into paying off debt. You're putting 45 into the future savings fund, your emergency, you're building that. And you still add 10% for fun, because we all recognize that if we're not having fun, why do life? So if you allow yourself a little bit of cushion, a little bit of excitement in your life with a 10% reward that will allow you to keep pushing and doing this and making the life of your dreams. Another thing that could be fun is you can start thinking each month about ways that you could create extra income, what they are and what value it might be for you. And then some of the expenses as you're looking at them each month, what could you eliminate? And then to cross off the last Fingo item is to create a budget. And the easy way to do that after you've completed this spreadsheet is just go through and put a star next to the things that are your musts. These are your needs. These are the things you have to have money for. And the goal is to then make that number that be your budget, right? The things that are musts are what you are budgeting for. The other things are areas where you've got some room for improvement and areas that you could hold back on. And then tonight, if you are able to come, I will be revealing the next line. So hopefully you'll be able to be there. And here's the timing on that. So it's tonight at 6 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Central, 9 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry about the lateness on that, but there was a couple things I needed to do and I needed it to be a little bit later. So tomorrow is day 3, our relationship with money. We're going to be doing one of our visualization exercises and making a list. And I'll tell you all about that tomorrow. You guys are going to enjoy it. And then we'll get into the weekend workshop and we'll really explore what this has opened up for you regarding money and what you need to be doing to get yourself to a place where you're feeling the financial freedom that you know you deserve. I really want that for you guys. I want you to have more than you ever thought possible. I've told you a lot of stories about where I was in my poverty mindset, the lack that I was experiencing, and just I didn't have a lot of belief over what was possible. And then things changed. And it didn't happen overnight, but it certainly, I have seen myself grow and grow and grow. And it's all been about working up here. And so I don't know what's in store for you. I don't know what finance challenges you'll have next, but I do know that anything is possible. And I want to be there to help you and support you and to see you grow into that level, that financial freedom that feels right to your heart. Okay, that's what I want for you. Appreciate you guys. I hope you have a truly blessed afternoon. I will see you for day 3 tomorrow. And I hope you have a really great afternoon. Take care.